here at Pod and Deliver, we are discussing special education. Jacob, I hope you're doing all right.
Thank you, Ruben. Doing great. Good to be here, back at Pod and Deliver for our third season.
That's right. We are on our third season. And I just thought we would discuss this topic because so many people are sort of mystified by it. I heard one teacher tell me that some teachers are scared of it, and that is special education. There's no need to be scared of it. I thought we would discuss some of the ideas around special ed. And because if you don't follow some of the ideas that are outlined in the IEP, there are truly legal consequences. So there is that.
Yeah. Ruben, a lot of times people want to know what an IEP is. I mean, what is that? I mean, can you tell us what that means, IEP?
So what it stands for is Individualized Education Program. And it's just basically a long document that outlines the disability, the goals, and present levels of performance of a student with an IEP. And they have their own meeting once a year. So it gets updated every year as skills are improving, as goals are met, as and if there's any new information. That's what happens. Also, it gets updated in a broader way, a bigger way, every 3 years. There's a reassessment. They call them triennials. And let's reassess this individual student, see if there's enough information to perhaps discuss removing the IEP. Hardly ever happens, but or if there's just new data, new information regarding their academic progress and their behavioral progress. Some of the students have something called a behavioral support plan. Some students with autism get that, or other students with different disabilities. So there's
it's a team of teachers too, right? And I think parents, aren't they like considered part of the team of this IEP group?
Sure. It is in the team, in an IEP team, it consists of the parents, the case carrier, the admin, and various other staff like nurse, psychologists. So that's basically what an IEP is.
Cool, thanks. Like myself, I'm a general ed teacher. What's just something like myself, like do like that first week or two when they know they have a special ed kid in the classroom, somebody who has special needs? What's one of the things they should be doing?
First thing they should do is to ask the case carrier of that student or the special ed coordinator. It's just different depending on the school. Ask that person for an IEP summary sheet. And the reason why I say a summary of the IEP is because the IEP is too long. It could be intimidating. That's part perhaps of some of the fear of special ed is this big document. At least if you're an LAUSD, they do something called Wellagent, which produces many, many pages. But what's important is the summary, and it outlines some important components of the IEP. So that's critical. So you get like a quick snapshot of it.
Ruben, I get an email usually that tells me who my kids are, who I need to look out for and make sure that their accommodations are being met. But you know what I always like is when that special needs teacher comes to me and says, "Hey, did you get my email?" And that does happen, not to all of them though. And I always feel like that's a great connection because I feel like I'm part of the team too now. And it's just not like, "Hey, here's this kid and good luck." It's more like, "Hey, I'm here. You could call me, you could email me." And then it feels like we're connected. And like I said, there are some people who are really good at that. And then others aren't. I mean, do you see that where you're at?
Well, where I'm at, the special ed teachers are required to give snapshots, IEP summary sheets, and the IEPs. IEPs and the IEP summary sheets digitally, and also to give the IEP summary sheets, not the whole IEP because it's too much paper.
Yeah.
But the summary sheet physically to every general ed teacher who has an IEP.
I like that. I think that's so important. I wish, wow. Like I said, there are people who do that for me, but not all of them. And I do think that's important. I'm glad that you guys make that a requirement.
Well, absolutely. And, as I mentioned at the start of the video, there's legal consequences if you don't follow what's outlined in the IEP.
Right.
So So we require signatures. General ed teachers have to sign it that they have received it, and then we put it in we put it in the books that they signed it or they didn't sign it. But if they didn't, we go back.
I usually sign it. It doesn't always happen that first week. It might get to me like a few weeks later. But I hear. But when you mentioned like snapshots, like what exactly should someone like me be looking for? Like what? Because the document is long, and you said that there's summaries are good and all that. But what exactly, like someone like me, a social studies teacher, gets this document? What are the verbiage or some of the things I should be looking for?
So the first thing is, what is their eligibility? Is the
Mhm.
word a lot of people use, or another way of saying what's their disability. So it could be autism or specific learning disability or other health impairment, which often is attention deficit.
Mhm.
But that's not enough. Knowing a student has autism doesn't really say enough because that's manifested in very different ways. Students have very different abilities with that eligibility. So you ask, how does this disability manifest itself in the classroom? What does it look like? There should be a paragraph that demonstrates or that outlines how the student behaves or what it looks like in the class. That's a very critical part. The other thing that should be written on this summary sheet is the goals, and the goals usually cover reading, writing, math, and perhaps a behavioral goal if the student has autism or a behavioral support plan, so they exhibit behaviors that are problematic. And a very key thing is accommodations. The students have accommodations, which are supports that are legally required to be offered. A lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but there are times when general ed teacher says, that's not fair that they get extra time on a quiz. It's legal.
Right.
It's
It doesn't
required.
matter what you think.
Have to. Some
Yeah.
students are required to get that support because, you have some students who are just not cognitively able to do it in the amount of time.
Oh yeah, and you don't want to bring that stress onto. I mean, I always feel like I want the kids to feel comfortable. Hey, you need more time? Great. And usually there's a room for them to go to as well. I go for it. But it breaks my heart that you share that room. That there's some teachers who say, "Hey, why do they get more time?" But I guess there's all types of people.
It doesn't seem fair. We use this word fair a lot, but
Yeah.
is life really fair? I mean, there's a girl in my class. This is not very usual, but last few years at the school. But I do have a girl right now who gets somebody to give them sign language, right? Because she's hard of hearing. So is it fair that she's deaf?
Right.
And I have, nothing's fair, right?
Yeah.
So
what do we accommodate? Because you use the word accommodation. We have to accommodate.
We use the word accommodation, and I do want to say real briefly, I don't want to spend too much time on one particular accommodation, but the idea of a due date, when you give a due date for an assignment, it's very arbitrary. You could just tell them it's due tomorrow, but in your mind, just allow for it to be due Friday. If you give it on a Monday, it doesn't matter. Like, oh, I'm giving this kid, give them all extended time. You do realize that the due date is almost
it's arbitrary, right?
Turn it on the next day, or I think it's smart teaching to have flexibility on that.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out one last thing on accommodations. I remember getting this sheet. Now I don't think. Okay, you can see it here.
A little bit, yeah.
It says suggested instructional program supports accommodation. In 2005, when I started working at this particular school, and I look at this list, and it just has maybe 100 different ideas on how to support a student with an IEP. But some of them are really beneficial to everybody. For example, give directions in small, distinct steps. Use written backup for oral directions. Read or tape record directions to students. If you use some of these supports, all students benefit. Because even if they don't have focus issues or ADHD, a student could miss school, and you have a recorded directions or written directions there for them when they miss it. You just tell them now they have apps for this, so you don't even have to put it on, you don't have to play it on your phone. You can play it on Screencastify or something. So there's so many excellent supports, beneficial things that you could do that'll benefit, because even students that don't have an IEP, maybe they just weren't, diagnosed with anything, or maybe they just weren't spotted, but they have some of these behaviors and things that manifest themselves in the class, and they probably could use an IEP.
Right, they just haven't been identified. But one last question, Ruben. What if like a child has negative behavior, hasn't gotten better, it's persisted over the months, performance, they're not performing very well. What should a general education teacher do?
So reach out. So you mentioned earlier that it's a team. The team includes not just the case carrier. A lot of times that's just another teacher, but it's also admin and a parent. And sometimes they have a solution for you, and it might be a very simple solution. There's a student I think of in one of my classes that just needs to be separated by a couple of his friends. And when you separate and he doesn't see the other students, he becomes an A student. He goes from D to A. I mean, it's that dramatic. It's that stimuli that some students can't handle, and they want the attention. Just the move, we call it seating preferences, preferential seating as is an accommodation on an IEP. But that is a solution that a parent might know or another teacher might know. As you mentioned, it's a team of personnel that's there to support. And when you reach out, you get more information.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think this is important, especially for someone like me who's a general ed teacher who has, I think this year I have about 8 or 9 students. Some of them have autism, they have other disabilities, hearing and so forth. And you have to manage that. And you have to comment, like you said, it's a legal document. We need to be there for those kids. And yeah, the word fair maybe isn't the right word, but definitely want to meet their needs. And thanks I think this is a great thing to really consider while you're teaching. Like, this is an important piece, and not to just discard it. So thanks, Rube.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you next time on Pod and Deliver. Goodbye.
See you. Bye-bye.